Airframe, O's and P's, Practical Questions. Chapter A, Metallic Structures. Question 2. What are the types of damage and defects that may be observed on sheet metal aircraft parts? AMA 11, A K2. Brining, burnishing, burr, corrosion, crack, cut, dent, erosion, chattering, galling, gouge, inclusion, nick, pitting, scratch, score, stain, and upsetting. Chapter 2. Chapter C. Flight Controls. Question 19. What is a stabilizer? AM11CK11. A single-piece horizontal tail surface that acts as both the horizontal stabilizer and the elevators. A stabilizer pivots around its front spar. Question 20. What is it meant by differential aileron control? AM11CK11. Aileron movement in which the upward moving aileron deflects a greater distance than the one moving downward. The up aileron produces a parasite drag to concentrate the included drag down produced by the down aileron. Question 21. What is a Fry's aileron? AM 11CK11. An aileron with its hinge line set back from the leading edge so that when it's deflected upward, part of the leading edge projects below the wing and produces a parasite drag to help overcome the adverse yaw. Question 22. What is a ruddervator? AM 11CK11. Movement control surface on a V-tail airplane that are controlled by both the rudder pedals and the control yoke. When the yoke is moved in or out, the ruddervators move together and act as the elevator. When the rudder pedals are depressed, the ruddervator moves differential and acts as a rudder. Question 23. What is the function of the ailerons on an airplane? AM 11CK11. Aileron rotates the airplane about its longitudinal axis. Chapter E. Landing Gear. Question 36. What is it meant by the ply rating of a tire? AM 11EK9. The number of piles of cotton fabric needed to produce the same strength as the actual piles in the tire. Question 37. What is the function of the bead in a tire? AM11EK9. The bead is made of a high-strength carbon steel wire bundles and used to provide the strength and stiffness where the tire mounts on the wheel. Question 38. Is it proper to use a tube in a tubeless tire? AM11EK9. No, the inner liner of a tubeless tire is rough and it can chafe the tube in the normal operation. Question 39. What is the function of the grooves cut into the tread of a tire? AM11EK9. The grooves produce the optimum traction with the runway surface. Question 56. What are the three basic brake actuating systems? AM11EK12. First one is A, an independent system not part of the aircraft main hydraulic system. B, a booster system that uses the aircraft hydraulic system intermittently. C, a power brake system that only uses the aircraft's main hydraulic system as a source of pressure. Chapter F, hydraulic and pneumatic systems. What kind of filter is a micronic filter? AM11FK1. A filter with a special paper element used to trap small particles. Question 2. What is a double action pump? AM11FK1. A pump that delivers fluid with movement of the pump handle in both directions. Question 3. Why do most engine-driven hydraulic pumps have a shear section in their drive couplings? AM11FK1. If the pump should seize, the shear section will break, disconnecting the pump from the engine and preventing further damage. Question 4. What are the two basic types of hydraulic fluid used in modern aircrafts? AM11FK1, mineral-based fluid and phosphate ester-based fluids. Question 5. Does the main hydraulic pump take its fluid from the bottom of the reservoir or from a standpipe? AM11FK1. The main pump normally takes its fluid from a standpipe, while the emergency pump takes its fluid from the bottom of the reservoir. If a break in the system should allow the main pump to pump all of its fluid overboard, there will still be enough fluid in the reservoir to allow emergency systems to extend the landing gear and actuate the brakes. Question 6. Why are some hydraulic reservoirs pressurized? AM11FK1. Pressurization ensures that the fluid will be supplied to the inlet of the pumps at high altitudes, where there is not enough atmospheric pressure to do this. Question 7. What are the two ways an aircraft hydraulic reservoir may be pressurized? AM-F11K1, by an aspirator in the fluid return line or by bleed air from one of the engine compressors. Question 8. What is used to flush a hydraulic system that uses Skydraw hydraulic fluid? AM11FK1, tetraethylene or solvent recommended by the aircraft manufacturer. What is used? Question 9. What is used to flush a hydraulic system that uses mineral-based hydraulic fluid? AM11FK1, naphthalene, Farsal, or Stoddard solvent. Question 10. Where can you find the type of hydraulic fluid required for a particular aircraft? AM11FK1. In the maintenance manual for the aircraft, this information is also on a placard on the system reservoir. Question 11. What type of pump is a gear pump considered? AM11FK1. A gear pump is a constant displacement, high pressure pump. Question 12. What type of pump is a piston pump with a variable cam plate considered? AM11FK1. Fuel pumps may be divided into two distinct systems categories. System 1 consists of displacement and System 2 variable displacement. A piston pump with a variable cam changes the effective, not actual, length of each piston stroke. This makes this type of pump a variable displacement with constant pressure. Question 24. What are the two basic differences between a hydraulic and pneumatic system? AM11FK5. The fluid in a pneumatic system is compressible and the fluid in a hydraulic system is incompressible. A pneumatic system has no return system. Question 25. What are the two functions of a low-pressure pneumatic system in an aircraft? AM11FK5. To operate the gyros in a flight instrument and to inflate the pneumatic de-icer boots. Question 26. What are the types of pump used in a low-pressure pneumatic system? AM11FK5, a vane-type pump. Question 27. Why do high-altitude aircraft that have pneumatic gyro instruments use pressure-actuated instruments rather than a vacuum-actuated instruments? AM11FK5. At high altitude, there is not enough air mass to drive the gyros at the required speeds. Question 28. What effect would a dirty inline air filter have on the operation of pneumatic gyro instruments? AM11FK5. The instruments would not get enough air to spin up to their required speed. Question 29. Of what material are the vanes in a dry-type air pump made of? AM11FK5. They are made of carbon. Question 30. What kind of device is used to control the speed of movement of the pistons in a pneumatic actuator? AM11 FK5. A variable orifice. Question 31. What is the purpose of the moisture separator in a high pressure pneumatic system? AM11 FK5. The separator collects moisture from the air and holds it on a baffle until the system is shut down. When the inlet pressure of the moisture separator drops below 450 psi, a drain valve opens and all the accumulated moisture is discharged overboard. A moisture separator removes about 98% of the moisture in the air. Question 31. What are the two types of filters that are used in aircraft pneumatic systems? AM11 FK5, micronic paper type and screen type. Question 35. How is the air charge of an accumulator checked for proper servicing? AM11 FK7. All hydraulic pressure must be bled from the system and the pressure is checked on the gauge. Chapter G, Environmental Systems. Question 36. How is cabin pressure controlled in a pressurized aircraft? AM11 GK8. More pressure than is needed is pumped into the aircraft cabin, and the pressure controller modulates the outflow vane to maintain the correct pressure in the cabin. Question 37. What is the function of the cabin outflow valve on a pressurized aircraft? AM11 GK8. The cabin outflow valve, which is controlled by the pressure controller, maintains the correct amount of pressure inside the cabin. Question 38. What is the function of the cabin pressure safety valve on a pressurized aircraft? AM11 GK8. The cabin pressure safety valve prevents cabin pressure from exceeding the maximum allowable differential pressure. Question 39. Must pressurized aircraft have a negative pressure relief valve? AM11 GK8. The structure of an aircraft cabin is not designed to tolerate the inside pressure being lower than the outside pressure. Question 40. What keeps the cabin of pressurized aircraft from being pressurized when the aircraft is grounded? AM11 GK8. A squat switch on the landing gear holds the safety valve open when the aircraft is on the ground. Chapter H, Aircraft Instrument Systems. Question 9. What are the three fundamental pressure sensing mechanisms used in aircraft instrument systems? AM11 HK4. The Bourbon tube, the diaphragm of bellows, and the solid state sensing device. Question 10. What are the basic mechanism used to measure oil, fuel, and oxygen pressures? AM11 HK4, the Bourbon tube. Question 11. What mechanical means is used to measure pressure in an aircraft indicator? AM11 HK4, a diaphragm. Question 12. A failure of an airspeed indicator needle is more likely to be caused by what problem? AM11 HK4. A blockage in the pilot head will prevent the creation of a differential pressure. Pitot head. Question 13. What mechanical means can be used to measure oil temperature? AM11 HK5. A fluid-filled sealed system compressing of a bulb and capillary tube connected to a Bourbon tube. As temperature increases, the volume of the fluid increases and expands the Bourbon tube, which is connected to an indicator dial. Question 14. How does a thermocouple measure temperature? AM11 HK5. The unit is comprised of two unlike metals. As temperature increases, a small voltage is produced and sent to a temperature indicator. The higher the temperature, the higher the voltage. Question 15, why is the length of the thermocouple lead important? AM11 HK5. Thermocouple accuracy is dependent on the resistance of the circuit. Lead lengths are designed for a specific installation, so should never be altered. Question 16. What type of electrical circuit is used to measure small changes of resistance in an electrical resistant temperature probe? AM11 HK5. Wheatstone's bridge circuit. Question 17. What type of system is used to indicate the position of the wing flaps? AM11 HK6. Usually a resistant type remote indicating system such as a DC sensing system. Question 18. What information is shown by the wing flap position indicator? AM11 HK6. The number of degrees the flaps are lowered. Question 63. What system does a takeoff warning system monitor? AM11 HK22. The takeoff warning system senses when the power level is advanced and checks the proper position of flaps and trim systems. A warning horn and caution light will be activated if the takeoff configuration is incorrect. Question 64. What condition what conditions are indicated by a landing gear warning system? AM11 HK22. A red light will illuminate if any of the gears is in an unsafe condition. A green light shows when all the landing gears are down and locked. An auroral warning will sound a horn if the landing gears are not down when the throttles are retarded for landing. Chapter I, Communication and Navigation Systems. Which frequency band is used for long-range communications from an aircraft? AM11 IK1. The frequency band 2 to 25 megahertz. The high frequency band 2 to 25 megahertz. Question 2. What are the two methods of modulating carrier waves for transmitting information? AM11 IK1. Amplitude modulation, AM frequency modulation, FM. What kind of antenna is used for the ATC transponder? AM11 IK3. UHF stub antenna. Question 6. What is the preferred location for the ATC transponder antenna? AM11 IK3. On the center line of the belly of an aircraft as far away from any antenna as is practical. Question 7. What are the three basic types of antennas used in aviation? AM11 IK3. Dipole antenna, macaroni antenna, and loop antenna. Question 8. What type of antenna are most aircraft VHF communication antennas? AM11 IK3 macaroni antennas. Question 9. How do static wicks aid the aircraft communication radios? AM11 IK3. Static wicks aid in the distribution removal of static that builds up on the aircraft. Built up static can cause radio receiver interference caused by a corona discharge emitted from the aircraft as a result of precipitation static. Question 10. What is the purpose of an intercom system? AM11 IK4. To aid in communication between flight crew or between flight crew and the crew cabin. Question 11. What kind of conductor is used to connect VHF or UHF antenna to the receiver or transmitter? AM11 IK5. Coaxial cables are used. Question 12. What is a coaxial cable? AM11 IK5. A type of two-conductor electrical cable in which the center conductor is encased in an insulation inside a braided shield that serves as an outer conductor. Coaxial cables are normally used for attaching radio receivers and transmitters to antennas. Question 13. How can you determine the proper coaxial cable and connectors to use in an aircraft radio installation? AM11 IK5. Refer to the radio installation instructions for correct part number for the coaxial cable and connectors. Question 14. What preconditions should be precautions should be taken when installing coaxial cables between a radio transmitter and its antenna? AM11 IK5. The routing should be as direct as possible. There should be no sharp bends in the coax, and it should be kept away from heat that could soften the insulation. What is the Question 15. What is a BNC connector? AM11 IK5. A coaxial cable connector that is connected by inserting the guide pins on the male connector into slots in the female connector and twisting connectors 1/4 turn. What kind of antenna is used for VHF communications? AM11 IK5. A vertical polarized whip antenna is used. Question 17. Which frequency band is used for most aircraft communications? AM11 IK5. The VHF band between 30 MHz and 300 MHz. Chapter J. Aircraft Fuel Systems. Question 10. Why are fuel tanks divided into compartments or have baffles installed in them? AM11 JK3. The compartments or baffles keep the fuel from surging back and forth as the aircraft changes its attitude in flight. Question 11. How is a fuel leak indicated on a reciprocating engine powered aircraft? AM11 JK3. The dye in the gasoline stains the area around the leak. Question 12. What is the function of the sump in a fuel tank? AM11 JK3. The sump, or the lowest point in a fuel tank, is located below the fuel outlet. The sump collects water and contaminants and will have a drain to remove them. Question 13. What are the three different types of fuel tanks? AM11 JK3. Built-up tanks, integral tanks, which are integral for the structure of the aircraft, and bladder tanks. Question 14. What problem can occur in a bladder tank with a blocked vent? AM11 JK3. As internal tank pressure decreases, the pressure differential between the atmosphere and the tank can cause the tank restraints to fail and the tank can collapse and block the fuel outlet. Question 15. How do you prepare an aluminum fuel tank for welding? AM11 JK3. Remove all fuel and thoroughly wash the tank inside and out with hot water and detergent. The tank should be purged with live steam for at least 30 minutes, with live steam for at least 30 minutes to remove all residual fuels and vapors. Question 16. After welding an aluminum fuel tank, what pressure should the tank be tested at? AM11 JK3, 3.5 pounds per square inch, or PSI. Chapter K. Aircraft Electrical Systems. What size generator must be used in an aircraft electrical system if the connected electrical load is 30 amps and there is no way of monitoring the generator output? AM11 KK1. When monitoring is not practical, the total continuously connected electrical load must be no more than 80% of the rated generator output. This would require a generator with a rating of 37.5 amps. Practically a 40 amp generator would be installed. Question 2. What is meant by flashing the field of a generator? AM11 KK1. Restoring the residual magnetism to the frame of the generator. This is done by passing battery current through the field coils in the direction it normally flows when the generator is operating. Question 3. What is it meant by paralleling the generators in a multi-engine aircraft? AM11 KK1. Adjusting the voltage regulators, so all the generators share the electrical load equally. Question 4. What are the three types of voltage regulators used in the aircraft generators? AM11, KK1, vibrator type, carbon pile type, and solid state type. Question 10. How does a constant speed drive CSD unit maintain a constant output frequency of the AC generator? AM11 KK4 by maintaining a constant speed of the generator as the engine speed varies. What is question 11? What is the integrated drive generator IDG? AM11 KK4 when a constant speed drive CSD is combined within an alternator housing, the assembly is known as IGG. Question 12. What is it meant by trip-free circuit breaker? AM11 KK5. A circuit breaker that cannot be closed while a fault exists, regardless of the position of the operating handle. Question 13. What is it meant by a slow blow fuse? AM11 KK5. A fuse that will allow more current than its rating to flow for a short period of time, but will open the circuit if more than its rated current continues to flow. Question 15. What are the two principles upon which circuit breaker operates? AM11 KK5. Magnetic circuit breakers open a circuit when the current creates a strong enough magnetic field. Thermal circuit breakers open when a circuit continuously causes enough heat that will trip the circuit. Question 16. What circuit in an aircraft electrical system is not required to have a circuit protective device? AM11 KK5, the main circuit for starter motors used during starting only. Is an automatic reset circuit, question 17, is an automatic reset circuit breaker approved for the aircraft electrical circuits? AM11 KK5. No, only a manual operation is needed to restore service after the circuit breaker has been tripped. Question 18. How does a vibrator type voltage regulator maintain a constant voltage? AM11 KK5. When the voltage rises above the desired value, an electromagnetic relay opens and inserts a resistor in the generator field circuit, decreasing the field current and lowering the generator output voltage. Question 19. What is two components that are normally housed with a vibrator voltage regulator in a single unit generator control called? AM11 KK5, a current limiter and a reverse current cutout relay. Question 23. Where could you find the part number of a switch in an aircraft electrical system? AM11 KK7 in the equipment table or bill of materials on its electrical circuit diagram for the aircraft. Question 24. What is the main disadvantage of aluminum wire over copper wire for use in an aircraft electrical system? AM11 KK7. Aluminum wire is more brittle than copper. It is more subject to breakage when it is nicked or when it's subjected to vibration. Question 25. What is the size of aluminum wire would be proper to replace a piece of 4-gauge copper wire? AM11 KK7. 2-gauge. When you substitute aluminum wire for copper wire, use a wire that is 2 gauge numbers larger. Question 26. What is the smallest size aluminum wire that is approved for use in aircraft electrical systems? AM11 KK7. 6-gauge. Question 27. Can you substitute aluminum wire for copper wire? AM11 KK7. Yes, however, you must use aluminum wire 2 wire gauges size larger to carry the same current. Aluminum wire should never be used in runs of 3 feet or less, or in a communication and navigation system. Question 28. Can wire and free air carry the same?
wire in free air carry the same amount of current as a wire in a bundle? AM11 KK7. Wire in free air may be used to a higher current level than the same wire in a bundle. Always refer to electrical wire size selection chart. Question 29. What are the most common causes of wire failure in a crimped connector? AM11 KK7. The wire was not inserted far enough into connector and or the connector was excessively crimped. Question 30. What is one of the first things to check if an electrical component does not operate? AM11 KK7. Always start with simple solutions and move to more complex. If the component turned on, is the power available? For example, if a light does not function, is the system turned on? Is the aircraft electrical system energized? Or is the bulb burnt out? Question 31. What may be provided by the manufacturer to assist in troubleshooting? AM11 KK7. Manufacturers often provide a troubleshooting logic chart. Question 32. What are the four basic steps of troubleshooting? AM11 KK7. Know how the system should operate. Observe the way the system is operating. Divide the system into smaller segments to isolate trouble. Look for obs, observes problems for obvious problems first. Question 33. When routing a fluid line parallel to an electrical wire bundle, which should be on top? AM11 KK7. The electrical wire bundle should be on top in case if the fluid line leaks and will not cause a short that way. Question 50. Question 50. What is a SPD switch? AM11 KK15. A single pole double throw switch. SPDT single pole double throw. Question 51. If no specific instructions are available, which way should the operating handle of an electrical switch move to turn a component on? Turn a component on. AM11 KK15. Forward or upward? Question 52. What color insulator on a pre-installed solderless connector indicates that the connector is proper for a 10 gauge wire? Pre-insulated solderless connector should be yellow. Question 53. How many splices are allowed in a single wire ROM? AM11 KK15. 1. Question 54. When checking on electrical circuits for proper operation, what are the most efficient measurements? Voltage, current, or resistance? AM11 KK16. Voltage measurements are usually the quickest way to verify the completeness of the circuit by measuring the voltage at various points throughout the circuit. Question 55. What does the specific gravity of the electroid Question 55. What does the specific gravity of the electrolyte of a lead acid battery, electrolyte of a lead acid battery, the amount of acid relative to the water in the electrolyte? This is an indication of the state of charge of the battery. Question 56. What are the most likely causes of a battery with a distorted or swollen battery case? AM11 KK17. The battery has been overcharged or over discharged, causing the overheating, or could be caused by a plugged vent cap. A simple way to find that out is to unplug the vent cap and see if it's going to overflow. Actually, scratch that. On 57, question 57, on NiCad batteries, what is the minimum cell voltage at the end of the charge cycle? AM11 KK17, 1.55 volts. Again, on NiCad batteries, the minimum cell voltage at the end of the charge cycle should be 1.55 volts. Question 58, how is the state of charge determined on a NiCad battery? The only accurate way to determine the state of charge of a NiCad battery is by measured discharge with a NiCad battery charger. and following manufacturer's instructions.
That is all for
Airframe orals.